Hi everyone, welcome back to my new series on Joss Whedon. Throughout the course of this month I'm going to be talking about the various projects, both writing and directing, that Joss Whedon has done throughout his career, leading up to the release of the Avengers the first weekend of May. And of course The Cabin in the Woods, which is from a script that he co-wrote with Drew Goddard, which comes out, I think, this weekend, actually, the 13th. Yeah, I believe that's when this is scheduled to come out. And I will be talking about that movie next Monday. But today, as those of you who've been watching know that I did Buffy, the film, last week, and that was the script that he wrote, basically, on spec, basically, an original screenplay, which he then sold to a production company, and then was made into a film by Fox. He's written a couple other scripts, such as Suspension, which is an action thriller that takes place on a giant bridge, and Goners, which is a science fiction type of film. I'm not real clear on the thrust of that exactly, but the original scripts that never actually got produced. He may do Goners at some point because he liked the idea so much, but I have a feeling he's probably incorporated some of those themes and ideas into other stuff that he's done since then, so he may not actually make it in the end. But as far as in the wake of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he ended up working for studios on other people's scripts, basically, other projects that didn't originate with him. And the one script in which he gets sole writing credit for is the film Alien Resurrection, which came out in '97. Now, at that point, he'd already worked on a few scripts, both getting credit for and not. This one, he was the sole credited screenwriter, but during the production, there were a lot of changes made, a lot of cutbacks on some of the scenes that he'd come up with. He's a lot of the information that I've gotten about his career during this period I've gotten through an interview that he did with the AV Club, and I'll post the link to that below if you'd like to read more about it. But he really wasn't happy because he didn't feel like the producers, the director really respected his job as a writer was to make the whole thing work dramatically and have it make sense, and people would just throw ideas in there because they liked them, or they would cut ideas out because they were too ambitious. I've actually read this screenplay. It was many, many years ago, probably almost 10 years ago, that I read the script online. And there was a sequence involving the characters driving basically through a farm. There is a farm, a small farm on the ship that the movie takes place in, presumably so the crew can grow their own food and it'll produce oxygen, whatever. So they're being pursued by aliens on this cart, tearing across this farm, and there's like 2 or 3 aliens running after them, trying to grab them. This sequence was probably much too ambitious and expensive for them to do, I suppose, so it was cut. If you are a fan of his television show Firefly, you'll probably see a lot of similarities between the crew members on the ship, the one that brings the bodies for impregnation to the military ship, and the crew of the Serenity and Firefly. In particular, you've got Adam Baldwin. His character in Firefly is very, very similar to the Ron Perlman character, and there are other, similarities between them. I saw this movie in opening weekend, really didn't like it very much. In fact, Harry Knowles, who did Ain't Cool, got himself banned for a while from pre-screening 20th Century Fox movies because he went to the premiere. And afterwards, the press asked him what he thought of it, and he told them that he hated it. You don't do that at premiere ever. Yeah, Joss also is not a big fan of this movie because of some of the changes that were made. But he got screenwriting credit on that. More writers might have worked on it. But yeah, he was working on a film all the way up until the editing stage, and he sort of like threw up his hands at that point. I've actually seen a television special with the couple of comedians from The State. If you remember the '90s sketch show, The State on MTV, their names are Tom Lennon and Ben Garrett, and they work together on screenwriting a lot of different stuff, a lot of comedies like Night at Museum, and the Herbie movie with Lindsay Lohan, a few others. Their forte is comedies, and of course they're also responsible for Reno 911. And they were talking a little bit about what it's like to be a professional screenwriter working for studios and having your work thrown out completely and being prepared to throw your work out completely, and then being called on to refine scripts done by other guys because whatever was happening. They didn't like the draft, or they wanted to bring a new voice in, and they wanted someone to do pump up the dialogue a little bit on the day of the shooting because it wasn't working, and they've worked a lot like that. And so has Joss Whedon. He has co-written a bunch of animated movies, such as Toy Story and Titan A.E., which has Matt Damon and Drew Barrymore among its voice cast. It takes place in the early 31st century, involves this kid who's got a map embedded in his palm by his father to find this ship that has the ability to create a new planet Earth because the old one was destroyed by aliens, but he's being pursued by these same aliens. Pretty ambitious project, and it was a flop, I think. He also co-wrote, he gets screenwriting credit for Atlantis: The Lost Empire, which came out a couple of years, I think, after Titan A.E. And this involves a young explorer who's voiced by Michael J. Fox, who figures out where Atlantis, the sunken civilization, is near Iceland. And so he leads an expedition, and there's adventure, and danger and what have you. And they meet the citizens of the city that are still alive and getting their energy from a power crystal, and some people want to steal it. Big adventure. There are a lot of similarities between Titan A.E. and Atlantis. And he has co-screenwriting credit on both of those. What that means exactly specifically, I'm not really sure of. In one of these, he's credited with doing the treatment. I can't remember which one. If you look on the Wikipedia page, they're more specific with his contribution. A treatment basically is where you map out everything that happens in a movie, scene by scene, and who the characters are and what they're doing and what they say, but you don't actually do it in the form of a script. You leave out the dialogue. You're not specific in that way. So he was credited on Wikipedia with doing the treatment for one of those animated films. But he got, after Buffy, he really got well known for doing the script doctoring, being brought in on someone else's project to punch up the script, rewrite dialogue, make it work better. And the one that he's most well known for is Speed. This came out in 1994. Keanu Reeves, Sandra Bullock, Dennis Hopper, the Runaway Bus movie, Don't Go Slower Than 50 Miles an Hour. And his style is all over this movie, actually. And he's on record as being very, very happy with how this movie came out and how that his writing was respected, and that his contributions in terms of characters and everything like that really made the film work. And he's a very, very important reason why this movie is as much fun and as funny as it is. I think, there are a lot of lines that can be specifically attributed to him, like, for example, when Dennis Hopper threatens Keanu Reeves by saying, "Do not attempt to grow a brain." There's actually an exchange of dialogue in Speed and Alien Resurrection that's exactly the same, when a bunch of characters are looking at a bad situation, and one of them says, "I don't like it," and the other one says, "What's to like?" Both those lines of dialogue are in both Speed and Alien Resurrection. But this is a fun movie, and his humor and his style is all over. Another thing that's great about it is that he manages to avoid a lot of cliches, like having a captain that gives him a hard time. Keanu Reeves, he's like the rogue cop or whatever. His captain is actually very supportive of him and encouraging, and is willing to do whatever it takes to help him resolve the situation. So. In 1995, Waterworld came out, and Joss did some work on this one as well. Dennis Hopper has another really good line in this movie when he tells his men, "Don't just stand there, kill something," instead of "Don't just stand there, do something." That's a good line. But a lot of the work that he did on this, I think, was thrown out and rewritten, and so he wasn't happy with that. And a lot of people don't like the movie. I really like Twister a lot. Twister's lots of fun, and I'm not sure how much contributing he did to this, but if I had to guess, I'd say one line of his in particular, of Helen Hunt's, it has to be his. And that is when she and her crew of scientists are watching their rivals on TV give television interviews, and they're all full of themselves. She says, "He really is in love with himself. I thought it was just a summer thing." That's a classic Joss Whedon line. At least that's what it sounds like to me. I can't verify that these are his lines, but if I had to guess, I'd say that one is his. X-Men is a movie that he talks about extensively in the AV Club. He wrote basically a draft on this, and then it got rewritten quite a bit, and only really a few of his lines remain in the film, but they're some of the funnier ones. he is on record by saying that Halle Berry delivered the line wrong, or that she was directed wrong. When she electrocutes Toad, the whole exchange is supposed to go, do you know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? And then the lightning comes out of the sky and zaps the metal pole that he's clinging to, and he screams and goes flying into the water, and she watches him fall and says pretty much the same thing as everything else. Of course, she delivers it wrong in the movie, or at least not in quite that way, and she spoke the entire movie in an African accent, which they didn't end up using. They redubbed her entire part in a regular American accent because, I don't know, they just didn't think it came off right. But that's one of the reasons why her performance is so stiff in that movie. Doesn't really work. For the subsequent movies, she just speaks an American accent, but originally they were going to have her speak in an African accent, and then they did away with that. So her entire role is post-dubbed. Every single line is post-dubbed in that movie. After doing Serenity, which is her spin-off of Firefly, of course he wrote the script for that and directed. He did some writing on Captain America, the first Avenger, before doing work on the Avengers itself. He was asked to write a draft of the script, and then Marvel liked what he did, and they wanted him to direct the film as well. I'm not really sure what his contributions here are, but just character stuff, I guess, and perhaps some dialogue. I'm not really impressed with this movie. I like X-Men. I think that's a good movie, though it's disappointing that he didn't get more of his stuff in there. Captain America I'm not really big on. As far as what I could recommend here, I'd say Toy Story is definitely a good one. And the animated movies, Titan A.E. and Atlantis, those are both pretty decent. I'm not really a fan of Alien Resurrection. I thought it was just as dumb as he did. There's a scene where one of the characters walks down a deserted hallway to pick up a gun just for the heck of it, and he gets attacked by an alien. I was just like, what is this nonsense? This is crazy. Speed is good. I've liked Waterworld. Twister is a fun movie, although it's kind of dumb. But finally, the last two movies I want to talk about as far as his work are a couple of movies in which he did what is known as ADR, additional dialogue recording or post-dubbing. The first of these is The Getaway, which came out in '94 with Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger. They were a couple at the time, and they made this film, which is a remake of a Steve McQueen movie. Steve McQueen and Alan McGraw. And The Quick and the Dead, which is a Western that Sam Raimi directed, came out in early '95 and starred Sharon Stone as this lone gunslinger avenging her father's death, I think. Gene Hackman is the villain. Leonardo DiCaprio is in it. A bunch of other really good character actors. I really enjoy The Quick and the Dead a lot. I think it's a stylish movie, a little silly, because the whole movie revolves around these quick draw competitions, and you just think, if the bad guy wanted someone dead, he would just shoot him. But, it's a Western, there are all kinds of funky rules in Westerns. The Getaway I'm not a big fan of. I think it's a really bad movie. I think Kim Basinger is really terrible in this. She and Alec Baldwin have no chemistry together. They got together on another movie called The Marrying Man. And I think one of them was already married to someone else. They had an affair. It was this big scandal. The movie turned out to be garbage. Then when they made this movie, this was moderately better, I suppose. It's got some good action scenes and some of the other supporting characters like Michael Madsen and David Morse are fun. And a few walk-on roles. But one of the thing that I wanted to do is I went through both of those movies. Here's my notes for The Getaway, and then on this page I have The Quick and the Dead. And if you listen carefully, you can tell which lines are added in later, because the sound quality is different from when they record dialogue on the set during an actual take. And also you can tell by if a character is off camera, if their back is turned, you can't see their mouth moving. Those are the occasions in which they'll use post-dubbing to clarify something or just change the way a line is spoken, or just do it differently, add something. Now in The Getaway, it appears as though Joss wrote dialogue for Alec Baldwin and Jennifer Tilly and Michael Madsen and David Morse and Richard Farnsworth. But of the lines that I noticed, I think probably the best example would be when Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger rob a gun shop. And as they leave, the camera pans away, and the guy who's been ordered to lie down on the floor continues to talk. And he says something like, I know the drill, right? I count to 100. 1, 2, 3. I'm getting out of this business. And while you're hearing him say this, they're walking out towards the door. And this, could very well be a post-production addition, because it's very likely that no one said anything during that moment when the camera just follows him out the door. There's a whole bunch of other lines like that could be his. But of course I can't confirm any of that. It just sounds like it. Now The Quick and the Dead has extra lines delivered by a lot of supporting characters. Keith David has one in particular in which he openly admits to being hired by someone in town to kill Gene Hackman and being there. And that didn't sound like something that was actually in the original scene because the quality of the sound is different. And it's, of course, one of his off-camera lines. My employer is confidential. That's his line. Aside from that, he doesn't admit to actually being hired to kill Gene Hackman. And then there's a Leonardo DiCaprio line, as Sharon Stone is saying she doesn't want anything more to do with the quick draw contest and she wants to leave town. She rides off on her horse, and DiCaprio calls after her, "I don't think you heard me right. I said I liked you." Like that's supposed to encourage her to stick around. You know, he's this young kid, young gunslinger, a real hotshot. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of lines in this that are fun and maybe add a little something there. But yeah, anyway, it was just one of those situations where they shot the entire movie and then they brought him in to say, we could use a little more dialogue here and there and wherever. So that was his contribution. How much of this was his and how much of it was by other people, I don't know. But I'm just making my best guess here. And after that, of course, once 97 rolled around, he was working on Buffy the TV show, so he was pretty well occupied. But once Speed became a big hit, and of course he doesn't have credit on that movie. The script is credited to Graham Yost, who did the original version of the script. And the Writers Guild rules say that only the original writer can get credit, and all the guys doing the rewrites, they don't get credit, even if they get paid for it. But of course, Hollywood being the business that it is, and people talk amongst themselves, everyone knew who the guy was that was responsible for that, so that's why he got so much work writing on other people's films in those subsequent years. So, sorry if this has gone on a little long time. I wanted to talk a little bit about those films. I'm going to be talking about, more of the films that he's directly responsible. I'm going to be talking about the series that he's done. Of course, I'm going to be talking about Cabin in the Woods and the Avengers. Oh, by the way, The Quick and the Dead has one of the most awesome scores I've ever heard in a film. It's by Alan Silvestri. Guess who's doing the score for the Avengers? I saw his name on the poster. When the new trailer came out, there was his name on the poster, in the new poster, Alan Silvestri. I'm just like, no way, this movie could not be any cooler. So excited about that. So, Cabin in the Woods, I'm going to be doing that and the series, but the next video I'm putting up on Thursday will be something a little bit unique in the Joss Whedon canon. It's called Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along Blog. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye.